Hello and welcome back. So yes, it is that time. If you tuned into my stream yesterday, then you would know that 1981 has a match found for their KVK. We are doing tides. These are the kingdoms that we are going to be going into this KVK with. So we're going to kind of break down what the allies and enemies of this KVK are, as well as potential and hypothetical matchups that could be seen in like Zone 5, Zone 7, Kingsland, and how I think the actual KVK will end up. Like, is it fair? Is it not fair? Like, was Diplo rushed too much? Because honestly, we finished Diplo in about an hour, and I might have had something to do with that. I was a little impatient. That was on me last night. I was kind of hyped up, all the good stuff. But I do think that we did come to the correct result, even if it's going to be a hard KVK for one or the other side. So anyway, without stalling too much, let's hop into it. And up on your screen now is the top 300 governors by power and KP per kingdom in this KVK. Now, I just want to reference, this is not how matchmaking is done now. All CH25 accounts are considered and taken into account when you are doing your matchmaking. So, don't look at this and say this is everything. However, it is a good general gauge of how fighting power is kind of determined, right? So we look at this, and so as a viewer, how would you rate these individual kingdoms? And I'll say that doing Diplo, you can't just put 1606 on the same level as any kingdom in this camp. They are by far the strongest. They are a really, really, really strong imp. I don't know exactly what their ranking is in KP, but they're got to be top 10 in the game. So when you're thinking, okay, well, maybe water is a little bit weaker within wind, I'll tell you that right now, there's no chance. 1606 is a really strong kingdom, and I have respect for, 2218, 1568, 1256, right? I don't think that in a normal 1v1 that they would actually beat 1606. Now, you got to look at 3198, and all love to anyone watching this video, all right, but I'm going to call it how it is. 3198 realistically is going to be a non-factor in this KVK. They don't contribute much KP. They've got a lot of power, but we know how that kind of goes when it comes to KVKs and fighting. So that leaves fire and earth. So the only thing that realistically we wanted to make sure was that water and wind obviously weren't allies. And then you kind of have to either find out which one is stronger between fire and earth, or just say we're all just going to 3v1 water. Now, we went ahead and continued to have this conversation. I might have been overstating 606 a bit on my stream the other day, where I think that there's a chance that they could literally just 3v1 all of us. And now I also preface that by saying I think that would give 1606 maybe like a 10 to 20% chance to win. All right, that's not a lot. If I was doing 1606 Diplo, like, I wouldn't agree with that. And at the same time, I think that 1606 getting an ally in this format is also just maybe too much to the other side. So with that said, we kind of determined that fire, my camp with 1981, was a little bit stronger than the earth camp, just based on the age of the kingdoms as well as the total power and KP. And then we, from there, ended up coming across this ally combination. So what does this mean? We end up allying with wind camp, which is that bottom right camp, and we will be going against fire camp and water camp. So did I just say fire camp? We're going to go against earth camp and water camp. So on paper, it looks balanced, right? We've got very similar power and KP, right? The obvious outlying factor is that one of these kingdoms could take 4 of us on, in a sense, but I do think that this is the most favorable way that we could have gone about it. I think that if you take Earth Camp away from Water Camp, I just think the numbers game is too much. I just don't think it's possible for them to realistically get a win unless we severely underperform. Now, giving them Earth Camp, I think, adds a lot of spice to the KVK. I think that given Earth Camp, we'll see about their performance, but given their impact in Kingsland and later on zones, you now have the ability for, let's just say hypothetically, our camp, fire camp, to be 1v1ing Earth Camp, while ideally, I mean, wind camp holds against water camp in Kingsland on the other side of the map. And then I guess eventually it rolls into that 2v1 if we beat Earth camp or we lock them out of Kingsland, right? So this is just a lot of the hypotheticals. Now, what would I say as far as odds, right? Like, is this good matchmaking? Do I think that there could have been a better option? Well, one of the other options that was introduced, actually by 1606 at the very start, was us allied with 1606. And I think that would have been too one-sided. I think that they beat Wind Camp, and I think that we most likely beat Earth Camp, so we didn't like that option. And I think that given this, I think this is the best case scenario. Now, again, what are the odds? Stop stalling, Kane. So I would give us probably a 40% chance to win and 60% to them. And I know I said on stream that if they got Earth Camp, it would be more like 30%, but I think that's a little low. I think that we do generally have numbers, right? Like if you're looking at all these kingdoms, 1568 actually has quite a lot of KP. They've got some strong players. They've got a lot of power, right? 256, all these kingdoms actually, like 5 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are, I would argue, fighting kingdoms, right? And then on their side, they've got 1 ridiculous kingdom, 1 strong kingdom, and then 3 kingdoms that you really don't know how that power and KP is going to contribute onto the field. So you're looking at a numbers game in Kingsland that might actually just be too much, and could work in our favor, and kind of work against that 1606 longevity, because let's be real, they're not going to run out of resources, but I think that we might, but we're just going to have more players, and that's where I think it's going to be balanced. So 40-60 to their advantage. I don't think that that's a crazy number, maybe even 45-55. I think that you can't downplay an Imperium, like you can't just look at 20 billion power and 16.5 billion KP and be like, oh, well, that's even to Wind Camp 16 billion power and 16.5 billion KP. That's just not the case. We all know that that's not the case. So that's what we decided, and that's what we're going with. And because things get lost in the message sometimes and lost in the drama of Rise of Kingdoms, I would just like to reiterate that I have nothing but respect for 1606. I think that they're one of the best kingdoms of the game, which is also why I don't want to downplay the impact that they're going to have on this KVK. I think that they're one of the strongest and well-run kingdoms out there, and it's going to be a big pleasure to fight against them and their allies, as well as my allies in my KVK. It's going to be a blast, and I'm really looking forward to this KVK. So whether or not I say these things like, oh, this kingdom's got a little weight on it, or oh man, like, I don't know, talk bad about someone's account profile, like Farmer or Fighter or something, you shout out to Plato out there, but like, I truly don't mean anything bad by it, guys. I just kind of say it how it is, and nothing but respect to a lot of those people out there. But with that said, what are my personal goals for the KVK? And this is where we get into this, constant battle of Kane, you haven't hit 3 billion kill points, even though you say you always will. Okay, last KVK, I got like 2.95 billion, all right? And I took a big break during the KVK, like Zone 7, because I had personal life issues going on. Given that we're going to be fighting Imperium, I now think that there's no chance, God, I'm going to eat my words, there's no chance I don't get at least 3 billion KP. I would like to get that number. Obviously, I said this in a previous video, but this most units killed, I want to get this to 200 million units. I don't believe I have the speed ups for that, just truth be told. But I do think that 3 billion is reasonable, considering I trade about 2 for 1 in the field. So that's the goal. I think that obviously the star is in mind for 1981. It would be great to bring home another star. We are now a 7-star kingdom, and I think that we'll see how it ends up. Obviously, Diplo will probably be done behind the scenes, DKP, I imagine, and a lot of it also rests on what 1606 decides to do, because they obviously are going to control most of the fighting with their positioning and kind of where they want to set up and their strongholds. And so, in the Tides of War map, unfortunately, the map isn't open yet, but in the Tides of War map, we are on that top left and our allies are on that bottom right because it's diagonal, and 1606 is going to have the option to either go up or they're going to go to the right. So they're going to kind of dictate who gets that first zone fight. Now, I'll just say this on stream, this shouldn't be a surprise. We're not gonna back away at any point from any fight. If 1606 wants to come up, we'll fight them, and I'm pretty sure our allies will fight them as well, even if they decide to go to the right side. Now, for strategic reasons, I can't say if we're going to do that guaranteed, and who's going to fight who, but I think that just throwing the word out there, like 1981 is always down to clown and have a good time, and I think it would be a really fun Zone 5 all the way up until Kingsland. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about the matchup down below. I'd love to hear it. Again, please keep it civil. I know that I don't do that myself sometimes, and I caught myself lacking a little bit last stream. I do understand, but I'm competitive, and this stuff is fun. This is why I play the game. This is the good stuff here. So anyway, let me know what you guys think, and trust me, I'll be streaming a lot of it And I'll see you guys around in the next one. Peace.